Good afternoon. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive. Welcome to Saxon Woods Park in White Plains, where we are here to sign a number of important environmental bills into law, Westchester County law, as the culmination of a process that represents our commitment to the environment. And joining me here today, in addition to Deputy County Executive Ken Jenkins, are a number of members of the Westchester County Board of Legislators and a number of prominent individuals who are active in the environmental movement all across Westchester County. I'd like to highlight that from the Board of Legislators, we're joined, and we will invite them to say a few words in a few minutes, by the Chair of the Board, Vedat Gashi, Legislator David Imamura, Legislator Jewel Williams-Johnson, Legislator Ben Boykin, and Legislator Catherine Parker. The legislation that we're signing into law today has been passed by the Board of Legislators after their scrutiny and review that extended over a period of time, and many of the representatives behind me represent organizations in the environmental community that gave testimony to the Board of Legislators and provided their input on this legislation. The organizations represented include, but are not limited to, Soulful Synergy, Grassroots Environmental Education, Sustainable Westchester. We have Save the Sound, the Westchester chapter of the Hilltop Hanover Farm and Environmental Center, Federated Conservationists of Westchester County, and if I missed a few, we'll make sure that we catch up with them before the end of our press availability here. We have prioritized in the last couple of days a couple of issues that we think are important for Westchester County residents to understand. 2 days ago, we addressed the issue of taxation, and yesterday we addressed the issue of crime. These are major issues that are on people's minds. And in both cases, they represent issues that people are concerned about and have a certain amount of fear that taxes are going to rise, crime is going to rise. And we try to allay those fears by showing that the Westchester County government has both reduced county taxes in the last 4 years, and we've seen a significant reduction in crime over the last 5 years. Today's announcement is different. This is a positive announcement. This represents an accomplishment. These represent 4 additional acts that will help advance our environmental protection in Westchester County. And they're not the only actions that have been taken. This Westchester County Board of Legislators passed, and I signed into law, an important bill earlier in the year that reduced the plastic individual pollution that goes into our waste stream that's tied into the restaurants and takeout orders within the county. These 4 bills go along with that in the same spirit, along with other executive actions we've had, because we know that concern about the environment crosses all political lines. These are not partisan issues. These are bipartisan issues. We all care about our environment. We want to see clean air, clean water, and clean land. We certainly want to see recreational facilities, but we also want to deal with the climate crisis that we face and to do our part in Westchester County as much as we can as a region, not just as a government. This milestone set of legislations today includes 4 separate pieces of legislation. There is the Lead-Free Parks Act, which will create a process for monitoring and remediating drinking water in all of our county parks to ensure its safety. We have the Addressing Asthma in Community of Color Amendment, which will create a subcommittee of the African American Advisory Board dedicating to studying and making recommendations for policy changes to address the high rates of asthma in communities of color. And I might add that that study is not just esoteric. We know that last year the state voters passed an Environmental Bond Act where 30% of the revenues have been set aside for environmental justice projects. So the work of this effort to identify how we're going to reduce asthma can then be followed, and funded by resources that exist to actually implement those projects to reduce asthma. The third bill is the Renewable Energy Database Act, which allows the county to assist local governments in their move to create more renewable energy, establishing a database for siting of renewable energy infrastructure on municipal property. Think in terms of EV charging stations as one example of that. And the fourth bill is the Equity in Environmental Legislation Act, which ensures that all communities are treated fairly when the county is considering any new law in an effort to combat historical cases of violation of environmental justice. These 4 bills represent an advancement in Westchester County's protections on the environment, but the process by which they have become law is particularly interesting. All 4 of these bills, in a somewhat slightly different form, were advanced in the state legislature. State Assembly and State Senate advanced bills along these lines. These bills are still pending positive action in the state of New York. But through the work of Peter McCart and Ellen Hendricks from our team, along with input from all of us on the executive team, we went through a series of bills that environmental advocates of New York had prioritized, and we were able to distill out of that group of bills these 4 bills that could be acted on by the county government. Many of the bills that the state legislature are considering involve state authority, not county authority, and represent things beyond our scope. But these 4 are within our scope, and we're very happy that we passed this law today. This Board of Legislators can be rightfully proud that it has done what we hope the state legislature will do and the state government in signing the bill into law in the future. But for right now, this Board of Legislators and this executive branch are making these concepts law. And that is a statement not only about our commitment to the environment, but what can happen in the next go-around in the state of New York, so that these provisions acceptable in Westchester can be projected all across Westchester County. Legislation is not the only tool open to county government. You have seen over the course of the last number of years, we have made a commitment to electrify our bus system. Our bus fleet, 300-plus buses, Beeline buses, are now electric or electric hybrid. And in both of those cases, it creates cleaner air and less use of fossil fuels. If you're at a bus stop and the electric bus or the hybrid electric bus pulls out of that bus stop, you do not get a blast of that diesel fumes in front of you anymore. That's one simple example of less pollutants in the air. And in an urban setting, those are the kinds of things that contribute to asthma. We've also been able to expand our scope in electric vehicle charging stations, both the county in the way it's implemented it, as well as local governments. And we have a program in the budget in which we will help incentivize local governments that tackle that project. We had just a few days ago recognition by the state of New York of many of our governments that have achieved status in climate-smart communities. And we have Hastings-on-Hudson, represented today by the mayor, Nikki Armacost, and trustee Mary Lambert, who are both here with us, have achieved silver designation, which is the highest of any Westchester community. We have a number of communities that have received bronze designations, including most recently New Rochelle, Tarrytown, Peekskill, and there are others communities as well that have prior received that designation. This is an example of the across-the-board commitment that Westchester County, not the government of Westchester County, but Westchester County's people and institutions have toward improving our environmental presence and to reduce our carbon footprint and to increase means of recycling and to reduce the amount of waste in our system. And all of these things and more are part of the agenda going forward. I'd like to invite next to say a few words Peter McCart. He is our Director of Conservation, Environment, and Sustainability Programs for the county. That position was created a number of years ago by the Board of Legislators and put into place so that the executive branch would identify somebody who would have in their portfolio all of these issues. And I'm happy to say with Peter's acceptance of this job 6 years ago, I think he has become exactly what the Board of Legislators intended all those years ago in having somebody to serve as a point person on these environmental issues. So let me introduce Peter McCart.
Thank you, George.
Thank you.
As always. Climate change is real, and the assault on our natural resources is real. Whether it's from mankind's intrusion to the insects and pathogens that infect our flora and fauna, and some of these laws are taking care of that. We take our role as good stewards here at the county very seriously, and the county executive signing of these bills shows that. I'm looking forward to working toward the implementation of these important initiatives, and stay tuned. We have many constructive initiatives coming and some legislation as well, I hope. Thank you, George.
Thank you.
And thank you to County Legislator. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter McCart. Next, I'd like to invite Vedant Gashi and then the members of the Board of Legislators each to share their thoughts. I had the pleasure and the privilege of serving as a member of the Board of Legislators for 13 years. I had the further privilege of being its chairman for 4 years. I have been now out of that position for a long period of time, and I have great respect for the institution. As you would expect, an executive and legislature don't always see eye to eye, but at the end of the day, we find common ground. Today is an example of finding common ground on an important issue. and the leadership of every one of these members. And we're joined by past Chairman Ben Boykin, past Majority Leader Catherine Parker. We'll introduce again David Imamura and Jewel Williams-Johnson in a second to ask each of them to share a few words. Each of them has their own perspective. They have districts that are slightly different from each other, but in the totality, they make up all of Westchester County. First, the chair for Dakashi.
Thank you. Thank you, County Executive. It's a beautiful day here at Saxon Woods, and the perfect spot to announce loud and clear to the residents of Westchester County that we are deeply committed to environmental justice. For too long, the cost of not addressing these issues have fallen disproportionately on the backs of our most economically vulnerable residents. Today, that changes when our excellent county executive signs into law 4 bills that we at the Board of Legislators passed to protect the health and the well-being of all our communities for generations to come. In addition to the 4 that were passed and that are going to be signed today, as the county executive mentioned, we've had various environmental initiatives that we've already passed, and we continue to be committed to these practical and progressive solutions to stave off climate change, increase sustainability, and reduce the proliferation of toxic agents in our environment. Before we did these laws, we began our transition to electric vehicles and electric-powered buses in our fleet, and just this year, we passed a bill to increase our infrastructure for those electric vehicles, going from 40 existing charging stations to 189 stations by the end of the year. As was mentioned earlier, our upon request legislation that we passed works to lower the waste and plastic usage by only including plastic eating implements for takeout food orders when ordered, in a move that was lauded by both environmentalists and small businesses because it works to lower their costs. Another important measure we've been working on is holding Holtec accountable for monitoring the safe decommissioning of Indian Point. We lobbied hard to prevent radioactive water from being dumped into the Hudson River, and in August, the governor passed and signed the Save the Hudson legislation aimed at protecting just that. By working hand in hand with the county executive, as we've done, we work on our shared values on these issues, and we've been able to make a tangible impact, and we are committed to continuing to do so. Thank you, County Executive and all assembled, for your partnership and cooperation on all these items. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to call up legislator and past chair of the Board of Legislators, the Honorable Ben Boykin, whose district we are in today.
Thank you, County Executive Latimer, and all assembled here today for these very important signing of 4 environmental bills. Let me just take you back a quick second. When I came on the board working with Catherine Parker, one of the first things we did was ban number 4 and number 6 heating oils. And we moved forward from that to where we are today. Because we are committed to a cleaner and greener environment. These 4 bills, you go throughout our county, we see the number of people in our parks. They need water to drink and all. This first bill that will be signed will make sure that we monitor our drinking water, because if we got lead in that drinking water, that's not a very good thing. You know what's happened in Detroit and other places around our nation. We're not going to have that in Westchester County. The second bill is asthma protection for communities of color. Many of the environmental facilities we have been placed in communities of color or in communities where there's lower economic status. This bill is going to try to remedy that, because we know that pollutants that come from these facilities go into the air, they get into your system, and you have asthma. This will be a subcommittee of the African American Advisory Board. The third is a monitoring situation where we will be able to help communities move quicker to renewable energy. And the fourth bill that we're planning to do that will be signed today will make sure that our EVs and other things that we're doing will be very important to the communities that we're working in and around. Again, these bills, cumulative with what has been said and has been done, will continue to make sure that we have a cleaner and greener environment in Westchester County. Thank you very much.
Next up, I'd like to invite legislator and former Majority Leader Catherine Parker.
Thank you very much, County Executive Latimer. First order of business, I would like to recognize that Sustainable Westchester is here with us, because I think as we were talking about all the environmental groups, it just goes to show that what we have done today is leading the way for New York State. What we have done today is showing that Westchester, regardless of party, our values are for the environment. We are all together on this in Westchester County, and I hope that New York State recognizes that they too can be bold, they too can look out for our children and for our future, and they can move on a policy that is just as progressive as our policy when it comes to the environment. That is really for everyone. I also chair the Committee for Human Services, Human Rights, and Equity. And the piece of legislation that I had through my committee, Equity in Environmental Legislation, is really going to help undo some of the historic wrongs that we have had in Westchester County, focusing on policy for infrastructure that will not burden communities of color and will recognize that out of the 1 million residents, we are all equal. Thank you very much.
Next up, legislator Jewel Williams-Johnson.
Thank you, County Executive Latimer. These 4 bills today, on the whole, show that we are good partners for our county, all the communities in it, all the municipalities, our state, our nation, and that we are aware globally of climate change and the impacts that it has on our environment. I'm particularly excited about the subcommittee on asthma and how it affects communities. We know that New York City has one of the highest rates of asthma in our country, and we border on New York City, so it's particularly important that we address these issues, and I'm so looking forward to the results and the work of that committee. We're standing here in Saxon Woods Park, and you can see and hear children just ahead of us, and that's why these 4 bills are so important. As the saying goes, they are our future, and these bills will go a long way to protecting the future for the children here in Westchester County. As chair of the board's health committee, I couldn't be prouder to be part of this today and of my colleagues and the executive team. Thank you so much.
Now, legislator David Imamura.
Thank you, County Executive Latimer. As the chair of the Environment, Energy, and Climate Committee, I am so thrilled that we are signing these bills today. I am the second newest member of the legislature, and in my role as chair of this committee, these are the first bills that went through in my time as chair. So I am so happy to be here. As has been said before, these bills are incredibly important. The highest charge for any elected official is to help the people who cannot help themselves. And nowhere is that more true than the issue of the environment. As legislator Williams-Johnson said, that's true because our children don't have the ability to impact policy. And as I look at my son, my 2-year-old son, as I look at my wife who's due in March, as I look at the children playing in the playground in front of us, I know that we are taking actions today to safeguard their future. In addition, the people who can't help themselves, in terms of people who can't help themselves, as Legislator Boykin said, this bill, for too long in Westchester, has the burden of environmental policy fallen disproportionately on black and brown people, on people who are economically disadvantaged, and these bills take steps to remedy that. So thank you, Mr. County Executive, thank you to the ninth floor, and thank you to my colleagues for passing these bills. Thank you so much.
Prior to being county executive, I had the privilege to be in the New York State Legislature as both a member of the Assembly and then later as a member of the New York State Senate. When I was in the Senate, I was in the minority, and generally in Albany, a little bit different from in White Plains. If you're in the minority, you really don't have much of a voice, and there's really very little legislation you can pass. And was working in my office late one night looking at a bill that I had sponsored, and I was trying to get some co-sponsors for it. And as I sat there, and it was after hours, all of the other support staff had left, the building was relatively empty. I sat there and I thought about the time I had previously spent as a member of the Westchester County Legislature, and I thought to myself, had I been in the county legislature, I could do this. I would have a voice and an ability to pass it, not only when I was chairman, but just as a member, because the way the Board of Legislators works is much more, with much greater equality than the state legislature works with any member. David is the second newest member. Simmer Brandon is currently our newest member. But seniority is not the automatic coin of the realm as it is in higher levels of government. But as I sat there thinking about it, I filed away in the back of my mind that there were things that I couldn't do in Albany while I was a state senator that I might have the opportunity to do back home in county government. The roads have led me back to become county executive. So I sat with my partner, Ken Jenkins, and we talked about some concepts of what we might want to do. We recognized with the Environmental Bond Act passing last year that there would be resources available that had not been available before, $4.2 billion. And we were in a position, because we had put so much emphasis in it, all of these advocates that you see behind you, they made a strong philosophical argument for why that Bond Act could be valuable to us, that Ken and I talked about what could we do that might advance this. And then I suggested at the time, he readily agreed, that we should look through state legislation that had not yet become state law. And we immediately went to, because I'd done this when I was a state legislator, the Environmental Advocates of New York, EANY, which annually puts, not even annually, it's on an ongoing basis, they have a rating of bills in which they give it 1, 2, or 3 trees to tell you how important the bill is environmentally. They also give you 1, 2, or 3 smokestacks. But and there were quite a few of those. To look through those bills and to try to determine, were there any of these bills possible to do at the county level? What I had thought sitting in my office a few years before, could we turn that into actual action? And of course, the answer was we could. It was the hard work of Peter McCart and Ellen Hendricks, who's with us here. She is a town council member in the town of Greenburgh, but she is a director of research with us. We asked her because the research component, Steve Bass, who is our intergov director, to sit and help us think this through. We had 80 bills that we had to read through and evaluate, got the law department involved, John Nolan and his team, to look at things that could be done at the county level. What would the impact be financially? Let's talk to our operations people, and let's winnow this thing to a point where we can actually have bills that we could put before the Board of Legislators, that they could discuss and debate, that the advocacy community could look at and say, yes, this would be an advancement. It's not, the macro things that you could do if you were a state government, or for that matter, the macro things you could do at the federal government level. But it is what we could do. As a partner in that process, I'd like to ask Ken Jenkins to share his thoughts.
Thanks, George. And it's certainly a wonderful and beautiful day here to be with all of the colleagues that are here, colleagues on the Board of Legislators, colleagues from the environmental community, but more importantly, the leader that we have in County Executive George Latimer. And he is continuing to remind us that when you have the opportunities to listen to not just advocates from around the county, nor from around the state or from around the country, and to be able to continue to show people what you can do, that's the kind of leadership that we have. So let's make sure to give that recognition to County Executive George Latimer for all that leadership as well. But the reality, as George was just mentioning, that the points of starting out to take something that already existed, that there was hard work done through the environmental advocacy community, the environmental advocates of New York, and in partnering with all of our friends and family here in Westchester County on the various issues, and then having the outstanding leadership with Peter McCart and Ellen Hendricks to be able to winnow those things down. And yes, it was 80 different bills that we're going through with all of the folks that County Executive Latimer just mentioned. But this is the kind of thing, the result that happens when you're able to then present that information for the consideration of the Board of Legislators to see how we can make a difference each and every day. So these particular 4 bills are not the end, right? But they are taking the beginning and to be able to actually get it done, combining with the Environmental Bond Act, which everyone here had a great portion of to make sure that Westchester, and I'm sure County Executive will mention again, that the Environmental Bond Act, percentage-wise, the largest percentage in the state was here in Westchester County, and that's a testament to each and every person that's standing around. And now to be able to take these bills, combine that with actual dollars from the Environmental Bond Act to make a difference in the lives of each and every person in Westchester County. And, you know, as a particular point of view, it's not just our young folks, but it's our not so young folks, right? The folks that need to make sure that they can take in and breathe the air that we have, make sure that there's green and available spaces for them, making sure that the water quality, no matter where you are, is the kind of quality that not only is top rated, but is more healthy than anything else that we can have possible. So again, working with our local municipalities, working with our environmental advocates here in Westchester County, working with the organizations in the environmental community, working with each and every county legislator, as well as every level of government. That's how we make a difference, and that's why in Westchester, our leadership with George Latimer makes that difference, not just for an environment, not just for police, not just for anything that we have from a tax reduction perspective. We get things done, and that's because of George Latimer. Thanks so much.
So I'm going to prepare to sign the bills, and we have, if I can do this properly, a variety of different pens. And I intend to give them to each of the legislators who are here, then a pen to each of the different advocacy groups. Let me mention again that we have with us here Soulful Synergy, Grassroots Environmental Education, Sustainable Westchester, Save the Sound, Federated Conservationists of Westchester County, and we have representatives from the Village of Hastings-on-Hudson, elected officials who represent the many local government officials that are here. At the end of the day, government has to produce result. There has to be a tangible result from all of this work. And we are speaking at a press conference, so right now we're in the universe of words, but we have to be in the universe of deeds. And the environment and every other public policy issue that's out there cries out for government that is effective, government that actually accomplishes a task, whether it's paving a road, as Mamaroneck Avenue was a disaster in Ben and Catherine's district that got paved in the last couple of years, or whether it's something like the programs that we run for senior citizens in that pool area that recognize them and respect them, whether it's the investment we've made in general in all of our parks, which our Commissioner Kathy O'Connor, who's here, can attest to. We need to have government that produces results. And today, these pieces of legislation are just a part of a process. It's not the end. It's also not the beginning. It's a continuation. And the advocates who are here who want us to do more have a right to expect us to do more. But they're being brought in as partners into the governmental process to help us do more, to help us create the substance that will make Westchester what it is. We are one small part of this state, and the state is one small part of this country. But we're obliged to do what we can do within the context of what we have. And right now, what we have are 4 pieces of legislation which I can sign into law and advance the environmental concerns of Westchester County. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. The first bill in sequence is number 2023-188, and this has been approved by committees on legislation, health, and appointments. It's signed by all of the requisite legislators. This amends Section 277.421 of the laws of Westchester County. It establishes a subcommittee to study high rates of asthma in communities of color in Westchester County. This action by the Board of Legislators was passed unanimously, 16 votes in favor, no votes against, and was certified as acting on the 2nd day of October. And so today being the 12th? 12th day of October. By the authority vested in me by the voters of the Westchester County, I've signed it into law. As Westchester County Executive, it is now law, and since we are dealing with persons of color and the need to fight back against pollution, I'd like Legislator Jewel Williams-Johnson to take a pen, and Legislator Ben Boykin to take a pen. Thank you for your leadership and your service. Next bill, 2023-189, is the Equity in Environmental Legislation Act. And it has been passed by a number of different committees. They have acronyms and initials on it: Environment, Energy, and Climate, Human Services, Human Rights, and Equity, signed out by all of those legislators. And this bill will help us focus on assessing the cumulative negative impacts so that we have environmental fairness with the people of Westchester County on all of the actions that we take going forward. Once again, we are on the 12th day of the month of October. And I have signed this into law, and I'd like to provide a pen to Catherine Parker, legislator, and Chairman Vedat Gashi. Mr. Chairman, thank you for your leadership in making this happen. Okay. The next one we have is the Lead-Free Parks Act, 2023-190, reported out by Health Committee, Parks and Recreation, Conservation Committee, and Public Works and Transportation Committee. And this act also passed unanimously on the 2nd of October. I've signed it into law, and Legislator Imamura, David, thank you very much for your leadership. And I'd like to present the other pen to Peter McCart, who has helped organize the totality of this. Peter, thank you.
Thank you, George.
Thank you, brother. The final bill that we're signing is 2023-191. This is an act that is entitled the Renewable Energy Database Act. It is passed out of the Committees of Public Works and Transportation, Environment, Energy, and Climate, passed out by each of those committees, and approved unanimously, 16-0. And as I've signed it into law, I'd like to give one of these pens to Ken Jenkins for all of his hard work in doing all of this. And also to Ellen Hendricks for her fine work in doing all of this. Thank you, Ellen. Now, we have insufficient number of pens for all of the other representatives who are here. And we want to make sure that each of those organizations, can you hand me that list for a second, Ken? Thank you. Those who are here, and there's some who are not here, and we're going to make sure that they too have ceremonial pens. And I repeat what I said just a second ago. This is not the end, and it's not the beginning, but it's a continuation of our commitment. And we look forward for these organizations to continue their advocacy. Ellen Weiniger from Grassroots Environmental Education. Ellen, I can't see, so I don't know where you're coming from. There you are. Thank you for your leadership and your work. From Sustainable Westchester, Jim Custer. Jim?
County Executive.
Thank you.
very much.
We have from Save the Sound, David Ansell. David? Thank you, and congratulations. Thank you. We have Tracy Storer from Federated Conservationists of Westchester County. Thank you, Tracy. I have one for Soulful Synergy, Paul Presendieu. Is Paul with us? Okay, we'll make sure he gets that. And I have listed here also, I do not see Janet Harkham here from Hilltop Hanover. Well, we know there are other organizations that have been also involved. Are there any who are here right now, Pete? No, okay. Then we'll make sure that other organizations who've been equally involved in these things receive the support that, the recognition for the support that they've given us in making this happen. I appreciate all of you watching. I know that sometimes a procedure like this takes a little while, and the signing isn't particularly exciting, but it's an important statement of how you work together and you advance government in a way that's productive. And we're very happy that we were able to do this today. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive. Thank you for being present. Thank you for watching, and we'll speak to you soon.